The Retirement Cafe podcast, how lifetime allowance changes may affect you. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello. It's great to have you here with Kathy and I for this week's chat. We're going to talk today about the important changes to the lifetime allowance, which were announced in the Chancellor's budget in March. And it's fair to say that the extent of the changes has taken the financial advice sector by surprise. It was widely anticipated that the lifetime allowance would be increased, but not fully abolished. So today I'm going to try and clear up any confusion about what this latest change to pensions legislation means to you. Kathy is here to fire the questions, so let's get started. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. This is, if I can use the word exciting topic, exciting part of financial planning. It's certainly kept us busy the last couple of weeks, hasn't it?
It has.
These changes. So I think when we talk about lifetime allowance, it's actually quite important to start with just clarifying a little bit more broadly about pensions annual allowances. Because obviously that feeds into the lifetime allowance kind of legislation, doesn't it? That's
right. So the annual allowance is the limit on how much you can, put into your pension to get tax relief on the contribution. So you were limited in any one tax year to benefit from tax relief. It's not the maximum you can pay in, but you probably would only pay in to a pension if you were going to get tax relief, and you were limited on how much, or you are limited on how much you can contribute. So for the annual allowance for the 22-23 year, it's been said it's £40,000 for most people. I'll cover exceptions a little bit later. And you can get tax relief up to 100% of your earnings. So if your earnings are lower than the annual allowance of £40,000, you're only entitled to tax relief up to the amount that you earn. But from the 6th of April 2023, it's going from £40,000 to £60,000 a year.
Wow, 50% increase. That's quite phenomenal, really, isn't it? Big opportunity for lots of people. So what happens if you do happen to exceed the annual allowance?
Well, you just
and claim tax relief and get the tax relief on it, I suppose.
Well, you don't, in essence.
Okay.
You don't get the tax benefit. So you just have to pay a tax penalty. But in essence, you're in the same position as you would have been. You wouldn't want to do it. You'd only do it by mistake because there wouldn't be any benefit.
Okay, that makes sense. So you mentioned there are some exceptions to the annual allowance, which, as you said, is now £60,000. What are they?
So there are two main exceptions, and the first is for people who've already accessed their pension. And what they can't do is they can't recycle the money straight out of the pension and put it straight back in to a pension contribution and gain further tax relief, because you then in essence are subject to the money purchase annual allowance.
How much are they allowed to contribute in any one tax year?
So currently it's £4,000 and it is going up to £10,000 from April 2023.
Brilliant. So that's the first one, if you've already accessed your pension. And the second exception to the normal annual allowance rule?
Yeah, well, this is when you're tapered. Basically, you reduce because of the amount that you're earning. That you can contribute. So from April 2023, this is going to increase from the £4,000 to £10,000, which is very welcome to an awful lot of people. And what you've got to be concerned about is what your adjusted income is, and the limit at the point the tapering starts is going up to £260,000.
Okay, and so what does that adjusted income actually mean? How does that kind of work?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of devil in the detail, but for the benefit of this podcast, adjusted income is your taxable income, and then add back in your employer and your own pension contributions. So if your adjusted income is above £260,000, your annual allowance will gradually reduce by £1 for every £2 of income you have over the £260,000. Once you reach £360,000 worth of adjusted income, your annual allowance is going to then just become £10,000. And if you earn more than £360,000, you're limited to contributing £10,000 into your pension each tax year.
Okay, great. So that's a bit of basics around how much each year can be contributed into pensions. And so why is it important to understand the annual allowance before discussing the lifetime allowance? Obviously, I guess they're kind of connected.
Well, it was always a bit nuts, in my opinion, that you were limited on the amount that you could actually have in a pension, and then also limited how much you could contribute to a pension. Really, what there should be is one limit, i.e. how much you could contribute or how much you could get in. So I think the change in rules is actually quite welcome, and the contribution limit has gone up, and we're now basically saying, well, the Chancellor is now saying you can accrue as much as you want in a pension. There's going to be some limits on the tax-free cash, but there is not going to be a further charge. So the £60,000 limit is significant, and that's the amount that you can get in, which is going to be tax relievable.
On each tax year, yeah. Okay, so what was the lifetime allowance? And in essence, there's been a lot of fuss about it, certainly in the financial papers, hasn't there, or the money papers. So what is all the fuss about?
Well, I mean, when I started in this pensions world, there was no limit, and then it went down to 1.8 million, and then it went down to 1.5, and then it went down to 1.25, and now currently, £1,073,100, I think. Is the current lifetime allowance, but that allowance will still be there come the 6th of April. It's still going to be in there. So we know is that there's not going to be a tax charge on that lifetime allowance. So it's basically the maximum savings you can hold in a pension fund without having a further tax charge when taking your benefits.
Okay. So just to clarify, because obviously the headlines are saying, lifetime allowance abolished. Has it been abolished? Is it being abolished from the 6th of April, 2023?
No, it's still there. And again, if you've got a protection in place, keep your certificate, because there's going to be a whole heap of rules going to be continuing to be changed. In fact, HMRC have put out a recent bulletin, and they've asked for kind of assistance in creating the new legislation to be able to deal with the lifetime allowance being scrapped. So the real key thing is that the current limit of the 1,073,000 is the tax-free cash, which is going to be limited to the 25% of the current lifetime allowance, which is £268,275. So that's quite key. So even if you accrue more than that now, more than the lifetime allowance, the current lifetime allowance, you're still going to be limited to 25% of the current lifetime allowance for tax-free cash, or otherwise known as Pension Commencement Lump Sum. But, of course, this PCLS, which was brought in a few years ago, rather than 25% tax-free cash, is now very much part of it, because taking your pension, taking a lump sum from a pension, maybe some of it may be tax-free in the future, and some of it will be taxable.
And I remember having this conversation about, that's an odd name, isn't it? Pension Commencement Lump Sum. There's no tax-free in there, is there?
No.
So, that does that speak volumes about what's to come, possibly? Well,
that's kind of thinking that they've thought about what legislation they're going to do in the future, really. I'm not really convinced that is the case. But, it is just what it is. We now know how much tax-free. And to a certain extent, I can understand it as well. There's a lot of tax benefits in contributing to a pension, and maybe there should be some kind of restriction on what comes back tax-free.
Okay, so just to kind of summarise on that, there's the tax-free cash element of it will remain for the time being at 25% of the current. We're recording this, on the 31st of March, so the current...
Yeah, so that's the £268,275.
Yeah. Okay, so if I withdraw from my pension after the 6th of April... Once I've taken my tax-free cash element, what income tax would I be subject to on any other withdrawals?
So no lifetime allowance any longer. So no lifetime allowance tax charge. There's going to be a whole heap of legislation that actually needs to be rewritten to get rid of the lifetime allowance tax charge. But the lifetime allowance tax charge is now going to be 0. So that's the quite key. So in essence, anything in excess of the of your pension commencement lump sum tax-free cash, as I say, limited to 25% of the current lifetime allowance. Anything in addition to that will be taxed at your marginal rate of tax. So 20, 40, 45%, etc.
Great. So that's quite a significant shift, isn't it, in terms of tax charges?
Yeah.
If you are looking to exceed if you have got a pot that's bigger than the kind of the current lifetime allowance. Okay. So what about, you mentioned briefly about people who have protected their lifetime allowance. What do these changes mean for them?
There's so much confusion and there's so much to do there. So we've been working with some clients just this week whether we should actually make contributions into their scheme which will break their lifetime allowance protection because they know they're not going to have a tax charge when they take the benefits next year. So, again, devil in the detail. You've got the protection. The tax-free cash, we understand it, will be protected for the higher amount. So that's quite significant to keep your protection. There's quite a lot of complexity around. Some schemes have a higher allowance for tax-free cash as well. So they've got kind of protected tax-free cash allowances. So keep your protection certificate. That's the real key thing here, to make sure as this legislation unfolds that you've still got the protection that you had and you believe that you had.
Great. Okay, that's an important message. And do we know when there'll be more clarity about this, or when the actual abolition will become, I suppose, the actual abolition of the lifetime allowance itself, as opposed to just the scrapping of the charge, when that will actually become legal, become law?
I think the new legislation will be done could be easily into next tax year, so not the 23-24 tax year, could be 24-25. You need a new Pensions Act. So from what I understand anyway, I mean, I'm not a legislator, but if there was a Labour government, have said they're going to get rid of this or bring it back in. But so we've got a window anyway. We've got a window of opportunity to do some planning. There isn't a tax charge, we know, definitely in the next 12 months. We just have to see how it unfolds, I think.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of uncertainty, but some opportunity as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Any kind of final messages or anything I've not asked you about with regards to the changes to lifetime allowance?
Well, for a lot of people, of course, this is just not going to be relevant at all. There's some key things I think people should be aware of. The crystallisation event. I come past 6th of April. If you've got a defined benefit scheme, and that defined benefit scheme may have some tax-free cash, it may not. There may be some choices that you can make. Do you crystallise that first before you crystallise the money purchase? Do you crystallise your money purchase scheme if you've got one of those before you define benefit? Actually, just seeing how the interaction of these things work, we're not clear yet. I'm just saying to clients at the moment, look, we know we've got a window. Let's just wait and see. We're very much part of a lot of forums and have a lot of technical consultants that we rely on to provide us with this information around the real detail here. And I know that will all unfold over the next few months. I don't think there's any urgency for most people. Of course, if someone dies prior to 6th of April, gosh, that's awful if there's a lifetime allowance tax charge, because there's probably very little that can be done there, or there won't be anything that can be done there. But post 6th of April, lots of things are going to happen, and be very careful about getting, I would say, get advice, or really try and understand what the implications of these tax changes are, so you don't shoot yourself in the foot by making taking a wrong turn with something that you then regret.
Yeah, absolutely. Wise words. Okay, well, thank you for trying to clarify some of those changes a little for us today.
No problem at all. Hal, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast. I really do appreciate you joining myself and Kathy, and I hope you found our conversation helpful. As always, you can get in touch if you've got any feedback or questions, or maybe topics that you'd like us to address. You can get hold of me on an email at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at JustinKingCFP. And of course, you can find all the episodes on my YouTube channel. along with a host of other retirement planning videos. Just search for Justin_King when you search YouTube. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.